Hey everybody, and welcome to lesson 23 of the thread, the recap video. And this is going to be a short one. I told the kids on Sunday that it was more of a history lesson, but there were still some things that we could learn from the Israelites and then what was said by Paul in the New Testament. So, just to give you a little bit of background, we have looked at some of the kings from Israel. And then we saw that after Saul, the kingdom of Israel, the Hebrew people, there was some division between them. And so we get to a point in the story of the Israelites where there's an Israel kingdom and a Judah kingdom. Kingdom of Israel and a kingdom of Judah. So at that point in the story, we had about 250 years between Solomon and now, and it was just king after king after king in both Israel and Judah of kings that didn't do things the way God would want them to do things. They didn't follow God. They chased after other things, ungodly things, chased after other gods and sacrificed to other gods and those kinds of things. So, God sent prophets. God sent, Jeremiah and some others, and the people didn't turn back to God. And so he told them that he was going to send his wrath. So eventually we see that the Israel people and the Judah people, they were taken back to other countries. Their lands were taken. So let's start with in 2 Kings. In 2 Kings, it talks about the kingdom of Israel, the northern kingdom, and they fell to the Assyrians. That was God's wrath on them. The Assyrians, let some people stay there, but took most of them back to Assyria, and they lived there as lesser than, and it was a rough time for them. And then about 135 years after the kingdom of Israel fell, the kingdom of Judah fell, which was the northern part of what used to be the whole kingdom of Israel, and they fell to the Babylonians. And that's where we see a little bit about King Nebuchadnezzar, and we know some of his story with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but that was God's wrath on the lower kingdom, the kingdom of Judah. They fell to the Babylonians, and because they didn't do the things that God wanted them to do. We also see in that passage that God gives them hope. Okay, he says, in 70 years, the land will rest. In 70 years, we'll basically have a new start, have a new point where, you can see it if you as a kingdom can follow after me. Let me pull that up real quick, just so I get the date right. But it was 2 Chronicles. In 2 Chronicles, and it was chapter 36. What it says in the bottom in the last verse. Let's see. In verse 21. So in 2 Chronicles 36, verse 21, it says, "The land enjoyed its Sabbath rest. All the time of its desolation it rested, until the 70 years that were completed, and the fulfillment of the word the Lord spoken by Jeremiah." So the people also did have hope. And so that's where the story relates to us, is we also have hope. We are not bound to what happens when God unleashes his wrath. We don't have to experience that. So let me just read what it says here in Romans 5. So in Romans 5, 6 through 11, this is what it says. It says, "You see me at just the right time. When we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly. Very rarely will anyone die for a righteous person, though for a good person, someone might possibly dare to die. But God demonstrates his own love for us, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Since we have now been justified by his blood, how much more shall we be saved from God's wrath through him? For if, while we were God's enemies, we were reconciled to him through the death of his son, how much more, having been reconciled, shall we be saved through his life? Not only this, but we also boast in God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have now received reconciliation." So Paul is telling us that even when we didn't deserve it, even when we were dead in our sin, even though God knew that we would have sin in our life that pushed us away from him, he still chose to die for us. And that gives us an opportunity to know God, to have a relationship with God, to spend eternity with him and know his love and share that love with others. And I hope we can all know that. If you don't, if you want to know more, please come talk to me. I want to. I want to talk about, maybe what you're struggling with, or if you want to start your walk with Christ, that you want to start that relationship. Let's talk about it. I know it's changed my life, and I would be happy to tell you the things that has happened to me because of my relationship with God. He's blessed me. He's given me opportunities to do things that I never would have believed. And he's given me joy. I'm able to be joyful even when I'm going through things that it's hard to be joyful in that situation. So I love you guys. It's just a little story of hope. And I hope you get a chance to watch it. So I love you guys, and I'll see you later. Bye.